Hello, everyone. One quick ask. If you wouldn't mind going to the iTunes podcast area and giving us a rating and maybe a little bit of a review, that would be awesome. It really helps out the show, boosts everything to where more people can see what we're doing. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. This is like the fourth take of this little intro that we're doing here with Taz and I. Usually it goes a bit smoother than this, but it hasn't gone that way. Anywho, welcome to the show. This is going to be a show with Laura and Rusty Bruner. Both awesome people. Laura is kind of into natural medicine, sort of through diet and lifestyle. And Rusty coaches at a local affiliate and also is applying to be a firefighter. They have a new baby. How old is
4 months.
4 months. 4-month-old little girl named Evie. So they're kind of in like the throes of like the beginning throes and stages of parenting, and it's interesting to hear their perspective because it's new for them, and they're idealistic where they're at, and they've got a lot of strong thoughts on the direction they're going to go. And it'd be cool to check in with these guys, a couple years from now, and see what sort of things have changed since they have this 4-month-old. Other than that, we'll get into a bunch of different fun topics, but Laura and Rusty and Taz and I have a similar view on a lot of maybe conventional or non-conventional things. So it is a bit of a hippie episode in some way, but at the same time, we'll talk about a lot of fun little adventures. Before we jump into the show, let's talk a little bit about what is going on in Taz and I's live currently. So Taz, why don't you start? What's going on with you?
Why don't you start?
Fine, I'll start. I think for me, what's been on my mind recently is how little time we have. And when I say we, I mean me. I know you've always had very little time. I guess you just use your time more efficiently. But for me, I feel like I have no downtime. I feel like no matter what I'm doing, like hours in my day are filled. So if I have a little bit of a break where it's like, I could do nothing, I just feel that with I have to be on my computer, or I don't feel it. I don't have it anymore. Like I have to open up my computer and I have to be reviewing certain things or sending an email or whatever it may be. So I just feel like I've been extra busy, and it's been rough.
Yeah, I feel like that's the beauty and the curse of owning your own business and working from home, because there's always something to do, always something to improve on. I feel the same way, and I feel like and I think we're both feeling this way at the moment because it's very heavily weighing on our minds as a family, because we're about to go on a trip for 5 months. So we have extra stuff that we're kind of taking on, getting the house ready for people to stay in it, getting ourselves ready to go, and then trying to get as much work and stuff as we can do before we leave. I feel like with the downtime, I physically have to create time, like in advance, if I want downtime. Like for you, your man night, like that's you creating that time. Like, okay, Tuesday night at this time, I'm going to do this. And then there's nothing else that can happen. I think for us, that downtime just like doesn't just kind of crop up anymore. We have to actively search it out.
Right.
That's what I'm trying to do is like, okay, 12 o'clock, I'm going to go take a walk with a friend. And if I haven't done my stuff, or if I haven't done everything I need to do, that's tough. This is happening.
Right. Fair enough. I like it. Well, without further ado, let's jump into the episode with these two lovely people. Enjoy. In case you guys didn't know, we have two sponsors for the show, actually two family-run companies that I'm really proud to have on board with us. We have Perkia Rings. Perkia Rings are a lot like the Kalo rings that you guys have seen around, the little rubber silicone rings, except they're thinner, a little bit more comfortable, and they're cheaper. So if you go there and type in code TRIBELIFE, you will get a discount on the rings, and it gives a little kickback to the show. That's a family-run business. It's a one-woman show who has her 4 kids help her out. We also have Cat and Cloud Coffee. They are also an amazing company. They produce super high quality, amazing tasting coffee, as well as really cool gear. They build amazing cultures at their spaces, and they also help out the show. If you go there and type out barbershop as a code, you will get a discount on the stuff, and you'll also give a kickback to the show. So enjoy those two. They help us out. If not, no worries. Just listen and enjoy everything else. Thank you. we're here with Rusty and Laura Bruner, and they're going to be this episode guest.
Episode number.
Episode number
We don't know
2,
yet.
3, 4, 7.
679.
4.
Yeah, 4. Is it 4? Episode number 4.
Deep.
So the question is to these guys, our normal starting off question: what is, if you were in a group of kids, what is your go-to response of like? It gets around you in the circle, and you say your name and who you are, and kind of what you do.
I am a dad who...
Who are you?
Oh, I'm Rusty. My name is Rusty, and I'm a dad, and a recent dad at that. And I like to teach other people how to move and have fun and take care of their bodies and take care of their minds.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's good.
That's a good one.
I'm Laura, and I'm a mama and a wife. And I also like to help people with their health, specifically with nutrition and movement, and now more recently with mindset as well. And I primarily like to work with women going through the motherhood transition.
Nice. You guys both have different upbringings, but a lot of the way you were brought up bleeds into how you're going to bring up your kids. If you look back on it, what was your childhood like, and what is something you're going to take from that, and what is something you're maybe not going to do each?
Do you want to go first, or should I?
Yeah, well, I'll go first. I think, like for me, my parents got divorced when I was 6 months old. And my mom raised my brother and I until I was about 5 or 6 years old, and then she met my stepdad and married him. And he was a very, very strict man, a good man. Taught me a lot of good values, but he was, like, for the most part, through my entire childhood, I was mostly just scared of him. And, like, not in the sense, like, he was never beat me or anything like that, but, like, he'd get mad, and he wouldn't yell at you. He'd be like, oh, my God, I just don't want to feel the wrath at all of, like,
Right.
just him looking at you angry was terrifying to me. And I don't, like, I appreciate the idea of, yes, your child should have, like, this level of respect for you to where when they know they messed up, they are going to have a hard time looking you in the eye because they don't want to disappoint you, but I don't want my kid to be afraid of me.
Right.
So Laura and I talk about this a lot, and it's like we want Evie to be able to have an open dialogue with us. Like we want her to feel safe enough to be able to do that. Like if she's having a problem or if she feels like she's made a mistake, like I want her to come to me. Even when I'm mad, like I still want to be able to talk about it. And so that's how I want to approach my parenting when it comes to her and like teaching her lessons, and when she makes a mistake and needs to learn a lesson, being able to gently guide her through that rather than just being like, what were you thinking? Like, I go to your room and you are not going to see the world for a week.
Punishment.
Yeah, that's not going to be our approach. And we talk a lot about it, and like we talk about different approaches and different scenarios before they've even happened. And I think a big thing that we've established before we even had kids, or had Evie before we were even pregnant with her, was like we've talked about how we want to parent instead of not talking to each other at all and just assuming, oh, I'm just going to parent the way my parents parented. Like maintaining open dialogue and being like, before we make any decision, we want to talk about it. And especially as Evie gets older and kids become a little bit manipulative as they get older, like trying to leverage mom against dad and vice versa, we won't make decisions if they're big important ones unless we've had a chance to talk. Like, I want to go blah 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 over to so and so's house and do this awesome thing. It's going to be really cool. Like, let me talk to your mother first, and then we'll talk together and then make a decision.
Instead of go ask your mom.
Yeah, instead of that one.
Passing it off.
Or
Is
just,
that one that you guys had? Like, go ask
No.
your mom, or did you
no,
have that?
not at all.
Go ask your dad, or
Yeah.
did you know you
if
were
one
gonna...
parent didn't want to deal with it, they'd say, well, go ask your mom.
Gotcha.
Usually my dad said, go ask your mom.
Gotcha.
Yeah, no, I never had anything like that. It was mostly like my mom made most of the parenting decisions when it came to my brother and I. Once her and my stepdad were together, I think there's just probably a weird step-parent dynamic that's kind of challenging for any sort of step-parent to navigate. And I think probably for him, I doubt he ever imagined himself being a parent. So it was probably easier for him to just make sure my mom was handling that. And of course, like he had his own morals and ideals that he would stress on us. But
Right. So basically, you guys are saying like getting on the same page as parents is your plan, and then making sure that you continue to basically support each other's decisions.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Well, so what did your mom, like, what was one thing your mom did really great that you, like, acknowledge now and that you are bringing into your parenting? Because, like, you're great with kids. Like, even before you had Evie, you know, you have a very gentle, natural way with children. And I'm sure that has something to do with being raised by your mother.
Yeah, my mom was super nurturing. And, like, in the beginning, before she met my stepdad, she was working all the time. And that was hard to deal with as a young kid. Like, I remember a couple times just being devastated when she'd go to work and be like, I don't want you to go. But even as we got older, and she was like, when she was still a single mom raising 2 boys, she was really good at just talking to us and talking things out. It's actually very similar to your style, to like observing you with Oaks and Arrows. Just very matter of fact and very conversational in the sense of like not trying to baby and shelter, in the sense of like, yeah, you're upset, let's have a conversation about it. I respect that. I want that too. Like,
That's cool.
I think we don't give kids enough credit to be able to reason through things.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, Oaks is already so much more mature than so many other kids his age, and that's how I want Evie to be too.
Nice.
I think that's kind of how my mom did it with us.
That's cool.
Thanks, man.
It's good.
What about you? What was your child rearing thing that you're kind of taking into being a mom now?
Or not taking.
What was your what was your background?
So my parents are still together. They've been together my whole life. And
So that's different.
so that's new. And I think a big positive for me is that my parents were both very open. If I asked them, like, have you ever smoked pot? They would tell me. Or my dad was super open about mistakes that he made. And I think that I learned a lot because of that. And I was very open with them. I told them when I drank. I told them when I smoked. I told them when I had sex for the first time. All of it. I was just very open. And so that is something I want to take into the way that I raise Evie, in that I want an open dialogue, kind of like what Rusty said. I want her to trust me and know that it's safe to share anything.
So you think that because they were open with you, that allowed you to be open with them?
Especially my dad. My mom, not as much, but I remember I have a very, very vivid memory of going on a walk with my dad and him telling me, like, all the... Is this explicit?
Yeah.
All the shit that he did in high school, like getting caught drinking in high school. And for whatever reason, that stuck with me so strongly that it made me not want to drink in high school.
Right.
And not want to disappoint him. And because he was so open about it and about how much it hurt his mom when he would get caught, it made me want to not put him through that.
Right.
So that's something that I definitely take away. My dad and I have always been really close. And I admire him because he worked every day my whole life, up at 5, off to work before we woke up, not home until like 5 p.m. And he still fostered a pretty amazing relationship with us.
That's impressive.
Yeah. And so that's big because, you know, it's hard.
Right.
And I'm learning a lot from him too about, this goes on to a whole nother level, but like social stuff in that we have very different political and social views. So now now I'm 30 and I'm still learning from him, but in an opposite way where now, I'm learning how to see people for more than just something, like not identifying someone with, let's say, their political view, or if they disagree with me about something, that I still can.
Is that hard for you?
Yeah, it's been a work in
you have quite
progress.
strong opinions, and when whenever you feel a certain way, it's hard
tough.
for you.
And I have been doing, I've been seeing a therapist for like 3 years, and I've worked through a lot of parent stuff. Because while my parents were together my whole life, and you're gonna go hang with Dad for a second. Where my parents are still together, and so while some people have to work through divorce or things like that, or an super unhealthy relationship or something, I didn't have to deal with that, but I did have to deal with other things. Like, I feel that being in a very different place than my dad socially and politically is something I've had to work through, and not identifying him or being disappointed in him for the things that we differ on, and the fact that I feel like sometimes he doesn't listen to me. Mm-hmm. And that's something I've taken from my mom too, is that growing up, she showed up for everything. She was at every sporting event. She took me to every practice. She was so supportive in that way. But I don't remember very many conversations where she listened to me, where we sat down and had a talk and I felt like I was heard, and that was able to express the way I felt about something, and there was a back and forth, like a dialogue about it. It was kind of, I would
So
tell
even though
her.
you had that open dialogue, you didn't feel like it was meaningful?
Yeah, well, I had more open dialogue with my dad
Gotcha.
than my mom. And my mom was very present. She was always there. But I think that we didn't have, and we still to this day don't have an open relationship where I feel like I can talk to her and she responds. And for a long time, I felt like I was being shafted, or that it was something, I held it against her. And what I've learned is to look more into, why is she that way? So what is it about her upbringing? So like trying to practice empathy, and that she was one of 7, and her mom, had her own issues, and her dad wasn't very present. And so she never learned those tools or those skills to communicate in that way. And so it's something that I've learned from her that I want so badly to be able to have an open relationship and speak openly and really like hear her. Because I did not feel very heard growing up.
Do you think, because I agree,
By my mom specifically, yeah.
That's great, and having an open relationship is great, and we obviously want to strive for that too. I feel like it's a hard boundary because you don't want to be their friends,
Right.
but you want to parent them, but also seem like they can come to you. And so we haven't really gotten to that point yet where we,
Right.
where Oaks doesn't share everything with us.
Right.
But I think when we do, it will be interesting to.
Yeah, that's some
see
interesting
how-
waters to traverse, because you see, I remember having friends in high school where like their mom was their buddy. So they like raged at home with their parents there. And that's not, I don't want to condone that either.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know?
I think that kind of goes back to what I was mentioning of, like, your kids have to have a level of respect for you. And if you are their buddy, they don't respect you the way that they should. So like, oh, dad's home, let's go get drunk. Because I had friends like that in high school. Whereas like dad was home and we could still go and party at their place. And that's ridiculous and not responsible parenting. And yeah, as a parent, you're not there to be their friend. You're there to make them a good human being for their life. And so
Rory had a really good thing that he brought up a while ago. It was like when we talked to Rory, and it was actually Todd Widman's thing that he was saying. He's like, you got to make people who are really good decision makers. Like that's the goal. It's like, because most of the tough decisions they're going to have are not going to be when you're there. So that's what you want to do, is instill your values at another time, to where when they go out and they get faced with a situation where they need to make a good decision, they see it as not, I'm going to make a good decision because dad would be proud of me. It's just like,
that's the good
that's
decision.
a good decision.
Yeah.
Like that's a dumb thing to do. That's a good thing to do. I do kind of like mess around with the thoughts of, I mean, I just read something where it was saying that kids seek parental approval from 0 till about 10. So they're looking to be approved by their parents. They look for that constant approval from their parents. And I think in those ages, it's really important that you are their friends. Like you back them up and you support them and you do everything you can there. But then from about 10 onwards, they're no longer looking for parental approval. And it's not a hard line. It's like 8 to 10 or whatever it is. But they're looking for social approval. And for me, as you guys were mentioning that, it kind of like, I could kind of put like a barrier in my head as like, I'm going to be as best a friend-ish as I can, still parent, do that stuff, but I'm going to be like, I'm going to be their bro till they're 10, and they're not making any horrible decisions once they're 10. But then after 10, when they start doing dumb shit where it's like, hey, I crashed my car, it's like, hey, that's not okay, like, and here's
But
the...
hopefully by then you would have created that relationship.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's one of the shames of, take even for your situation, your father was gone from when you were 6 months old. And it's like you didn't have that father figure for these really formative periods of your life.
Yeah.
And so now you get to be that for her and be in that situation. And I don't know, it's like, I think people underestimate the importance of those initial years, those first 10.
Totally agree.
Because once they're not looking for your approval anymore, how much true impact can you have on them other than modeling positive behavior? Like, I don't know.
Even at 4 months, the power of sitting there and listening to her, I can't understand what she's saying, but she'll be in the car seat, for instance, in the back, and she'll be like flipping out. She doesn't want to be in there. She's pissed. And I'll literally just look at her and say, hey, I hear you. That sucks. And she'll stop and start smiling. And I think people underestimate, like you said, 10 and below, even in these super early years, at how much just talking to them and listening to them matters.
I was just reading something last night where it was saying the plasticity of their brain is so great for their first 5-6 years of life.
Yeah.
I mean, even longer in that, but kids have just a much quicker ability to learn. but and they come at every situation with no preset understanding of the situation. Yeah. So they basically get the best view of a situation, and they can solve complex problems quicker than adults can, because adults rely on previously ingrained grooves that they have. We fall back into our patterns or our notions of the world, whereas kids come into it with a super open, malleable brain. So there's a bunch of connectivity. So like when there's a complex situation where there's obvious endings and there's like non-obvious,
right,
they can deal with that situation way better, because they're not looking to make it fit within their bubble. They're just
prejudgments
yes.
that they have.
Yeah,
set.
And they do this with toddlers and like math problems and like social experiments, and they'll put them in these situations. And adults, like 9 times out of 10, will fail, and they'll choose the path that most resembles a normal course of action. And a kid will like look outside the box and like grab something over here and just like add it to them, because they're like, what's the quickest way for me to solve this? How can I get it done? So
no one told me I couldn't pick something from outside the box.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's really cool.
And I just think, and I even heard my mom, she's a psychologist, and she talks so much about like, oh, he won't remember this. And I'm like, why would you say he doesn't? Why even approach the situation as though he doesn't? Like, say we're dead wrong and they really don't remember anything, and they don't remember any of these pieces. Why even approach these situations with that mentality? Why not just assume that it's all going to be back in there? Mm-hmm. I don't know.
I think that mentality is lazy parenting.
Yeah.
Like
no judgment, though.
No, he's patching judgment right now.
I'm kidding.
Like, I mean, I love your mom. She's amazing. But in anybody that takes that approach, like, the decisions you make day in and day out have an effect.
Totally.
And they have a compounding effect.
And remembering is different than
impacting. Yeah. And, I mean, taking that mentality towards anything, not just parenting, that's bullshit. It's like, I mean, the easiest way for me to think about it, because this is my world, is like, oh, the cookie every day or cookie right now turns into a cookie later, turns into more cookies and more cookies and more cookies, and all of a sudden I'm like, why am I out of shape?
Why am I
8
300
cookies
pounds
all the time? Like, there is consequences for not being an active participant in being a parent or whatever that may be. So I agree. You can't take that mentality.
And we've talked about this. How you get pregnant, you sign up for this. Like you got to take on that responsibility and the opportunity. Choice. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, we had that conversation.
We did.
It went further than that.
It did, and it still sits in my head as like, it's no longer your opportunity anymore. You have this. Like, this is, even if it wasn't your choice.
I guess, even if you didn't make the choice, now it's happened.
Yeah.
Right.
And you have so I guess we can think about it instead of responsibility as an opportunity to create a kick-ass human. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because if you're pissed about the way things are right now, this is a big thing for me, and why I've started working in like the birth world in some capacity, is that I'm pissed about a lot of things that are going on socially. And I feel like I maybe can't make a difference right now in this moment as much as I can down the line by supporting parents to be able to parent in their greatest capacity, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. I want to go back a little bit. I actually had a question for both you guys on, it's kind of like dealing with your childhood and where to now, but like you both have extreme ends of your parents were, or your, I don't know if your mom was, but you have a Mormon father or Mormon?
Yeah. Yes. Well, yeah.
Yeah. So like an extreme, what could be considered an extreme style religion that's like very unique, and then your father is like hardcore right-wing Republican and advocate of everything that they believe in, and those are very different than both of you guys currently are.
Right.
And my question for you guys is like, as you go to raise Evie, I mean, she's very young now, but what is your plan for exposure and context for those situations? So like, are you going to say this is how you should be, like left leaning, blah blah blah, or is it going to be like, we're going to expose you to a bunch of stuff and here's my thoughts on this, or like what's your goals?
Yeah, I think it's more of an exposure thing. I don't think one way is the right way, and as much as it's easy for us as human beings to make black and white the situation, it makes it easy for us to make decisions and make sense of the world, but there's a whole lot of gray, and I want to help her see the nuance in the gray and see other people's sides of things, and know that, like, okay, let's look at all the gray, and then ultimately, I mean, sometimes you will have to make a decision in a black or white way.
So say she comes up and she says she's at like 11. She's like, I want to be Mormon.
Awesome.
Like, okay.
Very cool. I totally support that. I will not go with you, but I will drive you there.
All right.
Because it makes you uncomfortable.
No, I don't believe in it. Like,
So,
I'm not.
yeah.
I've been there. I've done that. I think that's awesome. I can put you in touch with Grandpa because Grandpa has been doing it his whole life. Like,
It's all bad.
I totally respect that you want to do that, and if at the very base, explore it.
Right.
It's only going to make you a better human.
Right.
And I'm sure we'll get the question. My family's Catholic.
Right.
And I'm sure we'll get the question about baptism, which I personally don't see any need to baptize a child
Right.
when they can't make that decision for themselves. But yeah, kind of the same boat. If she wants to go be a part of any religion, I would definitely ask why.
Yeah.
Not in a condescending way or like, why the hell would you want to do that? But tell me about it. Like, why? Because...
Where's this thought coming from? Where's this idea coming from?
And then a big thing for me is, I guess I'm going to sound judgmental by even saying this, but is to not be super judgmental. Because I have some bad experience with religious people judging me in a very negative way and like hurting me. And so my thing would be, if you want to practice anything, like, you still need to make sure that you're working on being a good human and you're open to other people's beliefs. Even if you believe so strongly in something, it's important to still be open to what other people think and to having that conversation. And I think just by asking why, you can kind of preemptively teach them that in a way.
This is kind of like a sideline off the baptism thing.
Right.
But how far do you think you guys will go? Or, I mean, she's still young, but because there's a lot of cultural and family things that come into play with your children and your grandparents, and nothing's really come up for Pat and I that we've been like, well, let's just do this for the family. But like, where do you draw the line? Where do you be like, no, I strongly believe in this. This is something I'm like very, believe strongly in. So no, I do not want my child to be baptized. Where maybe it's something your parents strongly believe in too, and you could see it as doing something for them. And you know what I mean? I'm not saying
totally.
that. I'm not saying baptism is the thing. I'm just like, where do you draw
Anything
the
like
line?
that.
Like,
Yeah.
what? Like, because you just got to pick your battles. And
Rusty and I have kind of started that even since we got married. Like, once we got married, now this is our family, and so, like, for instance, my family's a kind of like an Easter and Christmas church going family, and we've set boundaries pretty early that we feel the most connected spiritually to whatever's out there. We're both spiritual people, just not religious. We feel most connected outside. So my family will go to church, we'll go on a hike, and then we'll meet up for dinner. So if they, we wouldn't baptize her. I just take that stuff too seriously, I guess. It's, to me, a baptism isn't just a tradition. There's a lot
What about
to it.
not non-religious things? Is there anything that you can think of that you would just like be like?
I don't know. I mean, I'm the type of person that doesn't do well with like any sort of ultimatum anyways.
Right.
Like, if you're going to force my hand, like, I'm going to call your bluff.
Right. Like if our parents were to.
Yeah, if our parents were to be like, you have to do this or else we're...
Like, Evie's middle name needs to be so-and-so
Right.
because it's been in the tradition for like 10 years.
If this sheds any light, we didn't tell them any name we had picked out. We didn't tell anyone that I was in labor. I guess we don't really feel, what's the word?
This is our
Like, we
nucleus.
owe anyone anything.
Like, this
Okay.
is our most important world. Like, if we're going to make a good decision-making person that's going to be in this world, making the world better, we can't be worried about pleasing extended family or friends.
Right.
But at the same time, our doors are always open. So, like, hey, we're going to do Christmas morning by ourselves, or we're going to do this Christmas Eve tradition, and everyone's invited. You can come to stuff, but we aren't necessarily always going to make it to the whatever the thing is, that's because it's just a family obligation.
Well, let's take that exact thing. Like, you didn't share with them stuff that was important, like the name of your child.
Right.
Now, that's your relationship with your parents. You're modeling that for Evie. So Evie now gets to see that this is how you treat parents. And if she grows up and continues a relationship with you guys, and you'll have a different foundation, obviously, but she looks at the relationship you have with them later in life. Do you think maybe that's going to model for her how she should deal with you?
It's a very good question. I think we have to be open about why. So, for instance, like, I didn't tell my parents because my mom I love her. She cares about us so much, but she has a very stressful energy. And I didn't want that a part of my birth experience and her birth experience. I didn't want her to come into the world with a very stressful, anxious energy around her. And I'm a big believer in energies and whatnot. And so I didn't want that. Even if she wasn't in the hospital, I just know that I would have felt that energy in some capacity. And so I think if I'm open about that, like, hey, grandma wasn't at your birth because for this reason. And maybe it's something that grandma's worked on by that point, but by the time we can have that conversation. So also
what was best for all of us
There's a
at
why.
that particular moment was for grandma not to be there.
It's not because grandmas shouldn't be there.
Or because
It's
that was best. That was what was best for us. So later in life, if she makes a decision that she thinks is the best decision for her and her future family, whoever, whenever that may be, like, and if it excludes us, that of course it's gonna be devastating for us. But those are the things that we taught her, and like that's something that I do believe in, and like I'm willing to accept that.
So it's just putting things in context.
Yeah, and I've tried to talk to my mom about it, and it's not a conversation she's willing to have.
And it's a conversation. It's just hard to have. Like,
it's hard.
Hey,
I've invited her to therapy with me, like, so I've tried to open the door, and if she's not gonna come through and like meet me halfway, then I can't welcome her into that space.
See, I'm wondering if this is an age thing or a generation thing, because I think as people get older, you get more set in your ways. You've got a more strict line on the world. But you hear about these, you hear about either people having midlife crises, or I know a lot of people, I guess in our inner circle, who are very reflective on where they're currently at in life and trying to take a lot of stuff on board and analyze it all. I'm wondering if as we hit a certain age, we stop doing that, and it's like, well, I'm not willing to take new stuff on board, and we're just going to kind of continue through the world like this. Or if that's generational, is like our parents before us, because of the way they were raised or because of who they are, they're unwilling to open up to a different side. And I would say it would be generational. But then I look at my father, and my father, like, you can kind of talk to him. You can, like, he's got another side to it.
He's always been like that.
Yeah, I know. But that's what I'm saying is, so are we, as like this now, going to be like this as we're old parents? As we're like 60, 70, are we going to be willing to be like, I hear your side of the story. Yeah, maybe I should change how I'm going about that. Maybe I should change my energy level.
What? I don't see your dad changing. I think he's always just been
that way.
He doesn't change how he is. He's always going to be this. He's always been the same person.
No. What I'm saying is with us. So like, if he did something that we didn't like, he would do it differently.
I see.
Whereas my mother, on the other hand, not the case.
Right.
We can have that really aggressive conversation, and she'll stay the same.
I wonder if it's to do with, like, we have so much more access to information these days.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, you're right. It could be that.
And they just didn't. In their in their 30s, when there's that we're having this huge growth phase now. When we're in our 30s, they just didn't have that accessibility.
They were having babies and hanging out with their same friends and having the same conversations, and we're just, like smacks us in the face.
I don't think it's a generational thing. I think it's an individual conscious or subconscious decision to be like, I'm going to stay open and continue to grow as a human being, or at some point a person stopped. And it's not a character flaw. Like, life fucking hits you hard. And the longer you've been around, the harder and harder it's been hitting you, it's been hitting you for longer and longer. And at some point, it's easier to just be like, I am no longer gonna have my eyes open to everything. I'm just gonna put my blinders on and keep my head down and just go. And I think that's easier. And I think a person falls into that, and then to pull yourself out of that, especially now that you're older and the world has changed so much than what you're used to, it's way too scary for a lot of people, I think, to open that place. Yeah, right. And I think it's just easier for them not to.
I mean, they had books back then.
Like there was
written word has been around for a while.
There was opportunity to learn and grow.
I like that.
That's fair.
I think people just put those blinders on because it's easier to live that way.
And I hope to not be the person that puts my blinders on. Like, I think those are the people who...
I think you can do it at times, right? Like,
totally,
we all do it at times where we're just like head down, like survival.
When the election was going on and I was very pregnant, I had to. It was becoming a very toxic thing for me. It's stuff that I cared about and I wanted to be vocal about, but it wasn't serving me. And so I did. I put and where I could have been listening to the other side a little bit more maybe and trying to understand, I didn't. I put my head down and I choked her.
That's heavy flow.
I choked her.
Yeah, that's very interesting. The whole generation, or
I like Rusty's answer. It's individual. It's based off of kind of like,
my dad is blinders on.
Because you see plenty of older people who have like
totally
such an energy about them, and they're still just so excited and stoked to learn stuff or to do other stuff, and it's like, and other people are just curmudgeons. They're just like, no, I don't know. I've never done. I don't know. Is that what are you crazy?
I probably
Get
wouldn't
off
do
my
it.
lawn.
I mean, I like the term curmudgeon, but I believe it's curmudgeon.
It's all right.
I like adding the smudge in there because they sound dirty
Sounds
as they
even
do it.
worse.
It's a curmudgeon. Yeah, it's like, let me
call my dad all the time.
He's such a
My thing is that I
curmudgeon.
make up a lot of words.
I like it. It's good.
It's amazing.
Oh, we've had this conversation.
It changes things too, like few and far from in between.
That's right.
Yeah, you just
Better
gotta
that
slide
way.
it in there. You just-
An extra syllable is better. Trust me.
I mean,
It makes it make no sense.
What were the other ones? Because we've had this.
There are others. I can't
There are
remember them
others, yeah.
anymore.
Can I help you?
Oh, kiddo.
I kind of had a question for you. You mentioned that you're a hippie at some point in time. No, that wasn't what you said. You said
She had dreadlocks.
No, yeah, Gyrasta.
Didn't you?
No.
No, she said.
You were like a full-on.
I wanted to be.
Oh, that's right.
Like I didn't smoke pot, and I liked it was like college, and I thought that was what would be cool.
Yeah.
Because it was different.
Well,
Yeah.
Well, okay. My question wasn't
Kind of a
about you
rebel by
being a
nature.
hippie. Rebel by nature, yes. Kind of rebelled against what your parents. But what I was gonna say is like you take a lot of holistic approaches to eating, as well as medication, as well as lifestyle, and all this other stuff. I'm curious because we have the conversation. Where do you draw the line between like I'm going to take an Eastern approach versus a Western approach? And I think let's put it in the medical world. Like you're going to try to treat things, and I think this makes sense to me. Try to treat things with the simple, most holistic way first of like, let's look at what I'm eating, let's look at potential allergens, let's look at lifestyle choices, let's look at these things, because those to me seem like good things to change.
Yeah, more like root cause.
They're more like root cause if you have our mindset. But when is it in your head, when do you switch to I need to now go something different?
When it's not working.
Is there like a time period?
I guess it all depends, right? If she gets a fever and I'm like, okay, we're gonna wait a certain amount of time and see if the fever runs its course, but now it's been multiple, like that would be different than I've had this headache for a month. I'd let a headache maybe try and fix a headache for a longer period of time. I'd live with it for longer.
Right.
Where something that's maybe a little bit more potentially harmful, I'm not gonna try and, if she needs antibiotics, she needs antibiotics. I might try things first, but then I feel if life is in danger, then Western medicine is there for a reason.
Right. Well, let's look at like a headache for a month. That would scare the shit out of me.
I guess it
if you had
depends. I live with that.
Oh, okay.
I had like chronic head, and I knew that
So
it was.
do you have a tool then for figuring out for you whether this is life threatening or like what's your context in your head for like I'm gonna try to treat this using lavender oil or I'm gonna try to treat this using an aspirin.
Right. So for myself, let's just go with the headache. I've done a lot of work now with like mindfulness-based therapy, and so I will. If it's like a physical pain or ailment or something, my first step is going to try and be to tune in and like return to my breath and try and figure out like just because sometimes things are signals that we are just not paying attention to ourselves in a way. If it's a headache or an ache or a pain or a stomach stuff or whatever, sometimes it just it can fall back on just tuning back in and like giving yourself time to go into more of and this goes on to like a neurological level to like slow everything down. Because sometimes ailments come because we are just like, go, 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 go. And so, I mean, I resolved chronic pain, neck, jaw, and upper back and head. I truly believe through mindfulness practice. Right. I had tried everything. I had done epidural cortisone injections. I had done like gnarly drugs. I had done chiropractic. I had done osteopathic work. Like, I spent so much money. And then I really think what helped was seeing the therapist, moving to Washington, going for a walk in nature every day. It just went away.
Right. Well, obviously, if you have lung cancer, that's not going to be the
Right.
solution. Right. I mean, obviously, we can do
Might
some
help.
Eastern.
Yeah, exactly.
So it'll totally help.
And that's
but,
something
like,
to think about.
Western medicine has to play its role too. Like I think it depends on the severity of what the ailment may be. Like,
but in any case, going back to like tuning into your own body. And I think one thing that Western medicine does is it teaches people, or in time, it's allowed people to disconnect with their body's ability to heal. So now we rely 100% on what some doctor says, and a doctor might say something and you're like, that just doesn't sound like what's going on. But in any case, I'm still going to take the 7 doses of antibiotics or get the surgery on my spine or whatever it is. Well, I think there has to be a balance of tune in first, see where you're at, and then listen.
Cool.
With a change of perspective.
Okay, that makes sense with an adult. Mm-hmm. Now you have a child.
Right.
They cannot talk to you, and child gets sick. Mm-hmm. What's the spot where you're like, okay, I'm going to give it some child's Tylenol and bring the fever down,
right?
Or I'm just going to let it run its course. Like, what for you is like what signifies to you that tipping point?
Is there a dramatic change in that kid's demeanor?
Yeah, that's the biggest thing, and like lethargy
and like kids are dangerous because
they can happen.
They're fine, and then they fall off a cliff in the sense of things go bad very, very quickly. So when there is something going wrong with your kid, like when they are sick, especially at a really young age, like you have to be very in touch and pay very close attention to what's going on, so you can pay attention to, like, are things deteriorating and how fast are they deteriorating, or are they staying the same? If they're staying the same and the kid seems like they're uncomfortable but they're doing okay, like, okay, let's ride it out. Yeah. And let's just see, let's do everything we can in a healthy standpoint. That's not big guns yet, but the moment it's time for big guns, like if I'm paying attention to what's going on, we'll know it's time, because all of a sudden she's like zero energy. Her breathing is slowing down or speeding up more than it should be.
We're on a texting relationship with her doctor. So we have 2 doctors for her. We've got like a regular Western family doctor, and then we have a more holistic functional medicine doctor. And we text with her doctor. Right. So I've texted her. I mean, and I say all this, right? Tune in, pay attention. But when she was like 5 weeks old, 6 weeks old, I took her to the doctor for no damn reason.
Right.
She was like wheezing a little bit, I thought. And so I'm not ashamed to go ask someone questions.
Right.
For me, it's a matter, I'll take that information and then I can decide what to do with it.
Right.
So I'm not for me, it's like, I'm not going to the doctor until she's coding. It's like, no, I'm going to go probably too soon. I'll ask questions too soon, and then I'll take the responses I get and decide how to proceed.
I think that's a good framework to have. Go earlier, decide what to do based off of that assumption, and I think
that's what insurance that covers that stuff.
And I think there's a lot of times where people will sit too far on one side or the other. It's like, I'm going to go in and give them whatever the doctor says, versus I'm just not going to take them in unless they're really like hemorrhaging.
Yeah.
I mean, we even had a thing where Oaks had pneumonia, and we let him go for like 3 days, and we're like, well, we should have gone in sooner. Like, we made that mistake, and now that's more on our radar. And we went back, and he started to have some weird thing, and we're like, check for pneumonia. Yeah. And and then he checks for pneumonia. He got pneumonia the second time. So Oaks has had pneumonia twice.
But the doctor missed it.
But the doctor missed it.
Not our doctor.
Oh.
The doctor there.
And then I took him back the next day because he wasn't better.
Intuition.
And I knew. And then my doctor didn't even check him. He just looked at him. I went in for error. Oaks was just kind of coming in. I was like, he's still kind of lethargic. He's like, he has pneumonia for sure. And he checked him and he had pneumonia.
So it's I think having the framework of being like, I'm willing to bring them in the second stuff seems abnormal, but not necessarily dose them heavily until we can figure out what's actually going on here.
Yeah, she's 4 months old. We still have a prescription sitting at CVS that I never picked up.
Right.
But we had it if we needed it. It was like a breathing thing,
And I mean, if you guys can't see her on the video, like Laura's kind of a hippie. Like she likes to do the natural style of almost everything. Like I would say, right?
Oh yeah.
Like there's not a single thing that you don't go to that first.
You can't
but
see her on the video.
But
doesn't it look like
no. What I'm saying, if they're listening on the podcast,
right? But like, even if you could see her,
it's the mala beads.
Yeah. I mean, that's a perfect. She's wearing mala beads. Like, do you sit and pray with those?
There's intention setting.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
if I need to tune in, I grab a bead.
Fair enough. I mean, like, I don't hold that against you in any way. In fact, I think it's spectacular. But just to give context,
And my kid's wearing an amber necklace.
Yeah, gotta get that amber. That is the corniest thing ever. But I like it. I mean, you went
cute.
It's cute. Yes, I would say it looks more adorable than anything else. Taz and I couldn't go there. So what we're talking about is those amber necklaces for it's like the teething baby. It's like, give them the amber necklace so they don't.
It seeps into their skin.
It's got the crystals that are aligning, and some people buy into it super hardcore. And you know what? If you go back to my other argument of like, why not try it and see what happens?
And we feel
that's my mentality. I'm like,
I'll try anything.
What does it matter?
Right.
Like what? Like
right.
Are you going to be the a-hole? It's like you're an idiot for even. Why would you put that on your kid? Be like, is it harming her?
Right.
Like,
and
it's not making things worse. If anything, it just looks cute.
Yeah.
right.
So
We didn't pierce your ears.
yeah.
Which is okay too.
Right.
If you go that route,
I'm going to say it's okay and then turn around and be like, oh. Just kidding. No judgment. Small beats.
So judgment has become a thing that I think
parenting.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. Like
Yeah.
throughout my life, I've been a relatively judgmental person, just because I think most people are. Most people have passed judgment on the world around.
Especially more confrontational people.
Yes, I'm mildly confrontational. But when I
Or maybe
when
you
I
just
became
vocalize it.
when
What
I
everyone thinks on the inside, you vocalize it.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
No, but when I became a parent, I found myself being really judgmental. Like
crazy, yeah.
Like it's wild to see my mentality go in my head and be like, and watch other people do things, and I have to catch myself and be like, maybe this is the one time, like maybe this is the one time this happened, and they're not just a shitty
I do that more
parent.
now.
I
used to
I
not.
like. I'm gonna take that.
Yeah.
I'm
Because we
gonna
don't use that
take
right now. That's good.
Well, no,
That's really good.
because I was of the mindset when we first had the kids, is like I'd watch one thing go down and I'd be like, oh my god, what a horrible and then I realized that like there's these times where it does happen to me, and that like Oaks will finally do something and I'll snap at him, and that'll be the one instance that somebody saw me,
Right.
and they're like, oh,
Or
he
like
snaps
the
at his
other day
kids.
when Arrow, this actually has happened multiple times, but not that many. He totally gets taken out in the water at the beach.
Oh, yeah.
Like the water will come in and just knock him off his feet, and he's rolling around. He's not even 2. He can't really swim, and his face is like very distressed, and he nearly hit his head on this like pole that was sticking out of the water, and I'm like, not rushing, but I'm like trying to get to him, and then there's always other adults around, and I pick him up, and their face, I look kind of glance over, and their faces are horrified.
And I would be more likely to judge a parent who wouldn't let their kid leave the towel than you.
Right,
And
but you're an abnormality.
Right.
Yeah.
Most people won't let their kids near the water.
Right.
And he's fine. Like, I couldn't believe it. Like, every time this happens, he's not crying, he's not upset, and he's fine.
It's like learning a respect
Please
for the ocean. That kid is a bruiser. It's amazing.
But yeah, I wonder what they're thinking. I'm like, man, they probably think I'm so irresponsible.
And I love how we're talking about one-offs, and you're like, this has actually happened.
Actually, this is not a one-off yet. So I guess.
But he's fine, and you know that because you know your
Well,
kid.
I'm there. I'm not going to turn my. I'm
Right.
watching him. It's yeah, exactly. But
That's funny.
I wanted to. So we're talking about Laura's. Well, essentially what you do for a living.
Mm-hmm.
The mindfulness stuff, the parenthood stuff. You want me to get closer to the mic? Is that what you're
Always.
asking me
I feel like I yell. I'll just yell.
to? So you used to be a teacher,
Right.
and then what changed? Like, how did you make that shift from being a teacher? And you've actually gone back occasionally to be
And
a
that's
teacher.
sub work, yeah.
And then you've again decided that's not for you. So I think there's 2 questions in here. Like, so why did you make that change? And then because you were a teacher, how does that affect how you think you're gonna deal with Evie's education?
Education. Yeah, that's loaded.
Because you are kind of a hippie, and you know.
I was teaching at a private, very high-end, very expensive college prep school. And I would have kids in my honors English class emailing me at 2 a.m, just starting reading chapters of my work because they were in, freshmen and sophomores. And I couldn't, and I had a curriculum I had to teach. And I didn't have a choice. I eventually kind of just changed things up on my own because that's not any way to live as a 14-year-old. To be up at 2 a.m, to have every expectation that you're going to get all A's, but then also do 6 extracurriculars, and you have to go to college and you have to study this and whatever. So I love to teach. Yeah, and I love especially that age group. I really like high school kids. I feel like there's a lot to be taught then. And it's a very important time, and they get it. You can have adult conversations with them, and I like that. But I couldn't continue. First off, they were asking way too much of me. So in this country, I think that teachers are asked, there's too much is asked of them, and they're not appreciated enough. And I was being pretty well taken care of. And then the second part of that was the kid, there's asking too much of the kids. And so I'd go back, right, for doses because I know that, hey, when I went back and subbed, I did a long-term sub position, I had the kids meditate every day at the start of class for 5 to 10 minutes. And this was, again, like a private all-girls school. And these girls were so wound tight. So I felt like, hey, I can go back I did a quarter. And I feel like I can make a little difference in these kids' lives. And then I got some space again from it. Because it's hard. Mm-hmm. It's hard to see the kids dealing with all of that when they're also dealing with figuring out who the hell they are and what they care about. And they're being forced to care about stuff that they don't.
you just feel like in that sort of a standardized environment, you couldn't make a difference.
Not enough.
Of a difference.
Like maybe for a kid or two. Like I've got some I'm still in touch with and whatnot. And that's been really cool to know that I've made an impact in that capacity, but not big enough for the toll it was taking on me and our relationship. And also now I work from home. I work for HQ and then I also do my own stuff. And now I have flexibility. And when I was teaching at the one high school in San Jose, it was wake up at 5 so I could work out, go teach all day, then like lesson plan, and then go coach. And I would get home at 8, eat dinner, and go to bed. And so selfishly, that wasn't a life I wanted to live either. Mm-hmm. So now I have flexibility. I spend time with my husband and my kid, and that's my priority. Mm-hmm.
So what about Evie? What are you going to do with her? I mean, she's ways off, but...
Yeah, but that's something we've talked about a lot because we can't afford right now some sort of like really cool, like, Oaks of School sounds amazing. So that's something we want to look into, or the Montessori, and I think that going to school is important for their development. So homeschooling is not something I necessarily want to do. I'm just glad we have some time, but it's going to sneak up.
Yeah.
So I don't think we're going to go, I mean, this is something we've talked about, but we haven't decided on.
Right. You could...
So I don't think we're going to go the regular public school route. Junior high is the worst too. I don't know.
If anything, I'd like to pull her out of junior high and then take her back to high school.
Because then it goes back to what Pat was saying about how at that age, especially junior high is like 10 to 15, right? Is that right?
Like 10 to 14, 10 to 13, 14.
That is when their peers become very, very important to them.
Yeah.
And if they're not around the peers that
you want them to be around.
I mean, yeah, essentially.
Is there a way to pre-construct, and this seems weird, but like a group of kids that we have raise up the same age?
We were just talking about this the other day, like how important other adult mentors are for our children, and how cool it would be to have a group of people. I mean, we already have a very good group of friends who we trust we can leave our kids with them for days if, and we trust that they're going to mentor them in very similar ways that we
raise them, not just watch them or babysit, but raise them.
And they're important to them. And we were just talking about how cool it would be, like, on Monday, Pat takes the kids surfing, and it's not just surfing, but it's like, they're talking out in the water about certain things or whatnot. And then Tuesday, a couple of the girls do some other stuff with them, and then Wednesday, someone takes them out in the forest. I don't know.
Yeah,
but it's so commune. But I think like
right
communes, but communes get a bad rep because they usually have some underlying principle. It's fucking weird. Mm-hmm. Like there's usually something that they're centering around that's weird, and I wonder if there was a way to make it so it's like we can all have the same value structure and we put that out very clearly. And you can have other beliefs outside this, because I know like we have friends who are like that, but it's like, what is a unifying thing that's not developmentally strange, or not developmentally but like socially I don't know, like what can we all have like a common unifying bond around that would not make it so we're like
nourishment, not just food, but
what does that mean?
Hippie.
I mean energy, like I feel like my inner
filling your
bear has come out, as you mentioned. Filling your cup is half full, not empty. Like, just get a smaller cup.
I mean, that's why he goes to Tower Redwood, is because of nourishment.
I don't know if there's a way to get around that. I mean, first, just the fact that we can have this conversation is only because we live in Santa Cruz.
True.
And not have it be this crazy, like, outlandish thing. But if you're not going to go the mainstream way, it's fucking weird.
Right.
And people are going to think it's fucking weird.
So weird already.
Not in Santa Cruz. It's
not in Santa Cruz.
Right.
People in Santa Cruz will be like, oh, yeah, I get it. But, I mean, definitely there's a lot of people in Santa Cruz who be like, you're not going to send your kid to a private school or to public school. Like, you're gonna do this weird hippity dippity thing where you.
Right.
It's not that weird here.
No, it's not that weird. But society thinks it's weird, and so I don't think. I mean, is it more of like, how do we make it not weird so more people participate?
Yes. For me, is like, I want to like. Can you imagine groups of people around the world who who wanted to create another generation of awesome kids, but like, what are the ideals that are pinpointed enough to where they're not overlapping and we have a bunch of gray area, but at the same time not so pinpointed that someone has to live in this rigid structure.
Well, I think you leverage. Parents are absolutely concerned and in touch with this whole like social media craze that's going on and the pressure and gnarliness that's putting on kids. Like if you're leveraging that, like, hey, we're getting your kids away from your phones because we're going out into the ocean. Clearly, you can't bring the phone with you. Like we're getting them disconnected at times from that stuff,
Which
and
is
they're
such
still
a stark
interacting
contrast.
with their peers.
I think also like the traditional sense, parents are so concerned about traditional education.
Yes.
My kid, well, how are they gonna learn? Like people, even with us going away for 5 months, well, how are you gonna take like work for Oaks? I'm like,
Those are kind of old people though.
But still. No, because we've
Really?
got friends.
We've got kids our age? Or people our age?
A lot of society's that way. Like money focused. My kid has to get this education so that he can have this much money so that he can have this house and this life because that's what I have and that's what he should have.
Right, so we're never going to appeal to those people.
Right.
right.
What we can appeal
And
to,
that's
though,
okay
is their
too,
kids.
like, because we've had this conversation too, and because for them, they're providing this really great life for their kids because that's how they were raised and that's what they see as being a good life, which is okay. Like Pat and I have gone back and forth with that situation and being like, why are we not okay with this? And we're like, okay, well, it's just because we don't agree with that,
Right.
but it doesn't mean it's wrong,
Right.
Because
It works for them.
because they're doing what they think is right for their kids, and you cannot fault someone for doing that.
No, you
know?
can't.
So, but
And they're
just-
doing what they're doing out of love, just like what we're doing is out of love.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so just going back to the like Oak's taking work over for 5 months. He's 5, like, I mean, my only concern would be like, I don't want him to forget how to write his name.
So that can be part of morning, right? Every morning, write your name down.
I mean, basically, like,
Yeah.
by the time he gets back, he's going to have had so many other experiences that if he needs to learn how to...
he's going to be underprepared for first grade. Basically, you set him back.
See,
like
this
that's
is what
the mentality,
people are worried
though.
about,
Yeah,
though.
totally.
And I'm not worried about that. But even just being around or like hearing it, I start to get concerned about it. And I'm like, well, but no, it's not a concern. And then I get concerned about it again. And then I'm like, no, it's not a concern. So I go back and forth with that being important. But is it important?
Is what important?
Is it important that that they have traditional education?
So in teaching, when I was teaching, I taught a presentation.
Yeah. Whoa.
Well, what's
That's her new thing. She
what's the
yells.
point of school? Is it for them to walk away with that education, or is it the
To
larger
get into the
point?
next school.
But no. But so even if you look at current education and how it's set up, a lot of people attack it as though you're supposed to walk away with facts and figures. But if you look at people who run schools, if you look at all this stuff, it's actually not the end state that you're looking for. You're looking for somebody who's got a keen ability to learn in a bunch of different areas. So they know how to learn math. They know how to problem solve in English. They know how to problem solve. So like the idea is they can apply themselves to any one of these things. The only thing I would say that goes outside of that is if you want to be pursuing higher levels of education in something, you have to have a foundation. But you can always do that later if you have the ability to learn.
Right.
So if you approach school less of like fact domination and more about a continued learning process and more complex learning as you go, I think the school of life is like, or what we're about to do, like where we take the boys out, like there's so many more opportunities in every single day to figure out how relationships work, to figure out how bugs run faster when it's hot versus when it's cold. Like there's so many more learning opportunities that it's going to stimulate their brain the same way as you would by sitting down and being like, this is a 2.
More.
Yeah, way more. I know.
Way more.
I know, but then you can apply
We
that.
don't know
knowledge.
that, right?
We don't.
We might homeschool our kids and they might turn out to be weird.
That's my dad's biggest fear.
But is that a rational fear? Like,
Yeah, it is, because do you know the homeschool kids from our generation?
And that's the thing.
They were weird.
So different now, though. Because they didn't get social interaction. That's the point you're making?
That's the point I'm making. It's like, yeah.
Oh, damn.
But yeah, I think you just build on what's happened in the past. You know, you watch something that happened before and go from it. I mean, we have plenty of friends who are like, I would never homeschool, and it's not. And it's twofold, I think. One, people are like, I would never homeschool because I think people are going to be weird. And the other is, I couldn't spend that much time with my kids. Like, I want my freedom. I want to be able to go to work. I want to be able to make sure that someone's giving them education outside me. And I think that's totally admirable and totally valid.
Yeah, and I think that's where we're at. We're in that like middle ground where we really want to, but we don't feel completely set up correctly to do it.
You have
just
work
yet.
to do, and
because
that's the
we
hard
have work
part.
to do. And then, I mean, we could. The thing is, we could do it right now. It's possible. If Pat and I work off each other, he has the kids in the morning, I have them in the afternoon. It's completely possible. But it would definitely change our lifestyle. We would have less time for each other. We'd have less time for ourselves. It would be making quite a sacrifice.
And then how good are you going to be at that role if you are sacrificing so much of yourself?
Right. So we haven't completely made the choice yet to do it or not do it. Maybe we'll have more reflection time while we're away from the country. Yeah. But I think...
and you'll learn so much about how your kids learn while you're on your trip.
Yeah.
As long as we're paying attention.
Right. Which circles back to where we started. Pay attention to your kid.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
I like it. So you guys have made some huge life decisions really rapidly. I mean, not since you've had Evie necessarily, but before it was like, later, we're going to quit everything we're doing. We're going to move to Washington. Yeah. And it was like, okay. And then you moved to the middle of nowhere in Washington and bought a house, and you're like, oh yeah, by the way, we're also buying a house out there. It's not like a semi-permanent move. We're going. And so you just left like on a whim.
Yeah.
And then you did a similar thing where it was like, hey, so we're coming back. And we're like, what? We're selling our house. We're coming back. And it's like, okay. And we're buying another house once we're here. And it's like, all right, cool. I mean, so you seem kind of like all in. So like, we're going to do this and we're going to get after it. What is that dynamic like? What is that conversation amongst you guys? Who comes up with the idea, and then what does that conversation happen like?
So it's fascinating. It's fascinating. Well, first I'll just say, like, all those decisions are always fucking terrifying.
Right.
Terrifying.
More for you than for me, I think.
Well, yeah, probably.
Especially
like the first decision to leave, that was terrifying. Like,
right.
In my mind, in a way, like I had the job that I wanted, and like it was my ideal of what a job would be, especially like going all the way through college, like international travel, like I'm making pretty good money. It's cool, and then to just leave all that behind, that was hard. But I mean, ultimately, my relationship with my wife and my daughter is of the utmost importance to me, and my professional career will never be put before my relationship with them. And I think that goes back to probably because, my parents did get divorced, and then my mom got divorced from my stepdad. And it's like, my relationship with my life partner is most important to me. And I was unhappy with where I was. And it took an honest conversation with myself to recognize, like, why am I putting up with this? Like, why am I putting up with being undervalued and overworked and, like, beating myself up over it big time? And it was finally like, yeah, there's no reason for me to endure this. Like, why am I doing it? And I was only doing it to myself. Like, like, it's easy for me to either stay in that situation and continue to abuse myself, or to leave that situation and no longer take it. So I chose to leave it because Laura brought it up. And she's like, we were out walking one day, and she was like, I was venting about work, and she said, very quietly and very calmly, like, what would you think about just going somewhere else and doing something different? And my first instinct in my head was like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, I am busting my ass in this job and you just want me to leave it? And I didn't say anything. I just kind of like let it stew.
You didn't say anything for a while.
Yeah, it was just quiet.
I was like, oh shit.
But then when I had that honest conversation in my own head, I was like, yeah, like, why am I putting up with this? There's no reason for me to. Like, there's definitely, I'm absolutely happy with my decision, but sometimes I beat myself up over the fact that, like, I feel like I failed in doing that. And so sometimes I beat myself up. Like, I failed professionally, and, like, I'm still scarred from that shit, like, big time. And, like, it's going to take me a lot longer to heal from that. Right. But I'm in a much better emotional place. And clearly, I mean, look where we are. We live exactly where we want to live, and we have this rad little kid who's playing with her feet. So the decision's always right, and I'm one to just like, once I make that decision, like I'm gonna go for it, and I can look back and just be like, oh well, there's that one thing, but I'm certainly not gonna regret the decision I made and pine over, oh, if I wish I coulda, woulda.
Right.
You know.
So it sounds like she comes up with something, like you're pretty, like you just deal with your life as it's in front of you and you make it happen. She'll come up with something that's like, hey, what about this? And then you have to ruminate on that, and then you guys have a longer conversation about it, and then you make it happen.
Yeah.
Is it like, has everyone been like, I'm going to do something
back,
crazy?
it was like literally
Both of us at the
we
exact
turned.
same time.
I'll never forget. We were driving home from your house. We had stayed
On
the
17.
night. We had come back to visit from Washington for your birthday, and then we on the drive back we were like, we had planned on buying an Airstream and driving up and down the whole West Coast, like Canada all the way to South America, and parking places and deciding where we wanted to end up. And on our drive back we were like, but we know where we want to end up. Right. We want to be here, and we at the same thought, same time, and we had or were we planning at that point I don't remember. But we knew in that moment at the same time that we wanted to be back here.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was a same time decision. The whole trajectory of Washington, getting there, we were so happy. And then the way things changed, we were on the same page very much that whole time. Neither of us was like, hey, let's just change again. It was like, okay, this isn't the right place for us. We're so glad we went, but we know that this is home now. So.
Yeah. But she's definitely like, she's much more willing to dive in. And if just from my side, it's like I'm very much paralysis by overanalysis. Like I can't make a decision because I look at every single possible outcome and I'm like, I don't know what the fuck to do.
And I'm kind of like, we'll handle it when we get there.
Yeah.
And
And then we balance each other out well, because I'm
fine.
like, I slow us down just enough to where we're still making progress forward, but it's not like, it's not a rash decision, and it's not no outcome because we never made a decision.
Okay.
It's like this nice balance.
So she comes to you with a crazy idea, Sabi, and what is one thing someone like you can do to not just get stuck and not make any decision? What is something like someone who's in your position where their spouse brings them something and they just freeze because that's outside their framework? What's something that you do to work through that little bit of like, oh shit, no, I just spent 5 years building this job and it's pretty good for a number of reasons. It's only bad for one piece. Like what is something that you can give to somebody else who gets in that situation?
When you look back on it 5 years from now, 10 years from now, like what will your perception be of that decision? I try to look at it like looking back on something, like, because I never try to live my life with regret. Like I don't want to regret things. I make a decision and I go with it. If you like, I wish I had gone to Washington. Like, why 10 years now I've been at the same job and I didn't make that decision. Like, God, I wish I had done that. Right. Then I think that's like, okay, let's start going in that decision. Let's start going in that direction. Right. And like, you can go down the rabbit hole of what ifs, but I think if you're honest with yourself, and it's hard to do, but if you're honest with yourself, like there's something inside of you that'll be like, yeah, this is the right decision.
Right.
And the moment I made that decision, it was like the weight of the world was off of my shoulders.
Right.
Like instantly felt good.
Right. So basically project out 5 years. What am I going to think of this decision?
Yeah.
Looking
I
back.
think another thing you might want to, I personally throw in there is like, is the only reason I'm not making this decision right now financial? Is it like I'm worried about losing money? Because you can always earn more money.
But that's always been your biggest
yeah.
thing
Well, but
that stops you.
That's my biggest
Scary.
hurdle. And that's my biggest psychological hurdle is like how do I?
Never bothers me.
Right.
And that's maybe, I don't know much about your upbringing, but we were always fine.
Right. And the
Our
money was
parents
never
an
we
issue.
talked
I didn't think about it. Yeah, I didn't have to.
Right.
Where I know you went through a phase where it was like tight. I don't know if about you.
Yeah, my whole life.
So it's just, I can see how that would.
Dirt poor.
Well, so we balance each other out well. Yeah. What about, so on the flip side of things, you're a person whose spouse likes to sit and like feel comfortable, and you're going to bring this idea to the person of like, hey, this is a little crazy. What do you think? What's like a strategy you could use or someone in your position could use to get heard the easiest from the spouse?
Empathy. Make sure that timing, verbiage, tone, all that is appropriate. And also like weighing pros and cons. I knew he wasn't happy. Right. So coming to this idea, it wasn't like just thinking about my well-being and being I wanted to move to make myself happy. He wasn't happy. So that's a part of it. And then just like, I guess this is a big one, is approach it. And I don't know if I did it as much this first time, but something I've learned is approach the conversation as a conversation, not as like, hey, let's do this. It's like, what do you think about? How would you feel about? What are your thoughts on?
Yeah, that's exactly how you approached it too.
It is? Okay, that's what I thought.
Totally.
I was nervous
and
about
that created an opportunity for me to think about it.
Yeah.
She wasn't like, I want to leave. So that probably would have made me like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Right.
But it was more of like, what do you think about moving somewhere else?
Right.
Like, well, what do I think about it? My first impulse is like, no. But I'm gonna think about it.
Yeah.
Like,
And
what
it's
do
a
I?
mutual
And then
respect
okay,
thing.
what else do I think about it? Yeah, like I totally respect her. I'm not just gonna shut down this idea. Like clearly she'd been thinking about it for a while. Like I want to listen to her,
Right.
and then think about it.
Love it.
Goodness.
Didn't you have a call?
Yeah, at 1:30.
Oh, isn't it?
It's 1:55. We're gonna go ahead and finish up a couple things. Let's do the question. We'll do this one in a second. Oh yeah,
That goes first.
This goes
Yeah,
first.
hold on
Okay,
a second.
this is our book of questions. Let's go here. This one. If you knew that you were destined to never achieve anything of real importance, how would it change your goals and attitudes? What if you knew you were destined for great things, but didn't know what? Let's stick to that first one.
Yeah, well,
If you knew you were destined to never achieve anything of real importance, how would it change your goals and attitudes?
How do you define importance?
It wouldn't change anything. Like I'm not one to sit still. Like I will follow the current. Like I'm not going to fight the current, but I can direct myself down the current and continually move forward. I've always kind of had this mentality: if like you're not moving forward, you've made yourself obsolete and worthless. Like if you're not willing to learn, if you're not willing to get a little bit uncomfortable. Like I know I take a very, very slow approach, but I do make decisions and I do make myself uncomfortable in my own time.
There's people who are slower than you.
Yeah, and I don't think it would. I don't care. Like
When we met, you didn't even want to get married ever or have kids, and then we were married within we knew we were going to marry each other within a year or so.
Yeah. I mean, I don't care if I don't make an impact or not. I'm still going to live my life the way I want to live my life, and I'm going to make decisions based that way.
Yeah, and that's a hard one to answer when you already feel like you have. I just look at her and I'm like, I already have done something important. I made a kid.
I mean, it sounds lame now that, as a parent, but like ultimately the only thing that really leaves a legacy that actually lasts is your child, because that's the only thing that ties us to thousands of years ago. I mean, it's like the Roman Empire. Yeah, we know about it, but eventually that'll be forgotten.
How about you? Any different? Answer the question. You knew you're not going to make an impact, and like this is kind of in your business. You know you're not going to make an impact on the world.
It's so hard for me to even wrap my mind around.
I know.
To be honest.
Think about it. Would you change something, and would you maybe work for somebody else and just kind of do something else, or like?
How much money do I have?
How much money do you have? Yeah, let's build context around it. So
Am I
you're totally comfortable. You're totally comfortable. Like you money's not an issue.
What was the second part of the question? What do you do? Like, what's your course of action if you know you're not going to make a difference?
Yeah. Would you change your goals or attitudes? Would you change?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My goals might be a little bit different. If I was I'm putting a lot of work into things in a direct effort. Not just I don't just want to make money. I would choose a different path and probably have a lot more money coming in if I didn't feel like I was going to be making a difference for somebody in somebody's life. And if I was putting all that effort into something and knowing that it wasn't going to affect anybody, I would be a little selfish and maybe spend more time at the beach or, in the hiking, enjoy life. I mean, I enjoy what I'm doing, but part of that enjoyment is knowing that I'm making a difference in some capacity. So that takes a lot of the joy out of what you're doing. If you're not going to make any difference, I'll find joy in another way.
I think it's funny. We didn't even take a second to define real importance.
Yeah.
So like we all just assumed we were thinking about the same thing, but think about it if we thought of real importance as financial gain, or if we thought of real importance as $100 million company, or think about so our values of importance are the same. So we think of importance as like a positive change in the world or like this huge impact,
right.
Whereas other people think of importance as like a sick car, and it's like I don't know, but
That's even across. I'm like, I'll take the sick car if I can't make a difference.
But it's funny. It's like I think we surround ourselves with like money.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's your downgrade. It's like I could make more money, but but then I wouldn't have to do something that was truly impactful. I think so many businesses are like that too. It's like I look at them and I'm like, you guys really don't do anything. There's 5,000 people who work at this company who have zero intention of making the world a better place. You make fucking plastic toys, and it's like,
With
what
child
the
labor.
hell? You know, like,
But everybody knows how to justify it in their own minds, right?
They're employing
for
somebody.
that really really rich person who owns the business. It's like, I'm employing all these people.
did you start the company that way?
Like our post.
Yeah, you know, it's just,
I don't know.
It's all funny. Like, we all find ways to justify our decisions so that we can feel good about ourselves and
Yeah.
keep moving forward.
I
I'm not sure where I was going with that.
I totally agree with
You're
you.
being empathetic to the other side,
Yes.
which is another thing that we balance each other. He's
Which
got
I
more
don't.
than I do.
I don't wholeheartedly believe that. But like, no, fuck you. You want money.
Yeah,
Like,
but it's yeah. Okay.
But once you have it, you have a new
for
level
me,
of
it's like, if you want money, dude, that's totally cool. But don't fuck other people over for it. And I think that's what drives me the most mad about, you know, these big companies that make a lot of money. They're like, it's just business. It's like, no, it's never just business.
Human.
Like, you are legitimately, you are fucking somebody else over and really putting somebody else in a really rough situation.
Right.
So it's never just business. And
Yeah.
we got off on a tangent on that one.
No, but I think that's true. I think, I mean, we quote him so often with Simon Sinek's thing. He's like, you can have anything you want in this world. You just can't take it away from somebody else.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I love that mentality of like, yeah, you can have whatever you want as long as you're not taking it away from someone. But they deserve to have it taken away. No, they don't.
No.
You asshole. Anyway, last question. You ready?
Yeah.
If you could go back to yourself when you were pregnant with Evie and you could tell yourself one thing about parenting, what would you tell yourself?
There's there's things you can do to prepare, but the amount of love you will have for that kid is something that you can't fathom till it exists, like, period. And I think that's the biggest one. And also to give myself more credit, like I'm better at this than I maybe thought that I would be, and so that's fun.
Cool.
Yeah, along that same lines. Let's just kind of like trust your own instincts and your own abilities.
You don't need to read every book and like ask everyone else for things. You can rely on people you trust, but also trust yourself. Right?
Yeah, totally. And like that goes back to just my background, the lack of a father, and then like my stepdad was a good man. He put good values in me, but he was a hard man, and so I was always kind of like a little bit afraid of being a parent, like because I don't want to be that way, the way that he was. I don't want my kid to be afraid of me. So there's always that kind of fear. And then now that I am a parent, I'm like, oh, there's no way. There's no way. Because like being able to be like, dude, it's okay. You won't be that way. Like being able to tell myself that.
Someone asked me the question, like, what's one thing you've said already that where you're like, whoa, I'm my mom. Like, I'm my own parent. And I had nothing. I mean, you don't have to be your parent.
I have stuff.
Right. And I might, I get emotional
There's
like she
plenty
does.
of opportunity for
But
sure.
I'm just saying, like, it was kind of a relief. Like, you can be whatever kind of parent you want to be.
Yeah.
No one's going to, you don't have to be anyone else.
Yeah. Cool.
Boom.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
That was really
High
fun.
fives, chest
Thank
bumps.
you.
Yes.
Thank you guys for listening to the show, and if you wouldn't mind heading on over to iTunes, giving us a rating, and also writing maybe a little review, telling people about the show, as well as checking out our sponsors, Perkia Rings, as well as Cat and Cloud Coffee. That's Perkia, Pyrkia. Use the code TRIBELIFE for a little discount. And if you want to go to Cat and Cloud Coffee, that's CATANDCLOUD, so Cat and Cloud Coffee, and put that in the old Google machine, pull it up, and choose anything in their store. Use code BARBERSHOP, and you can get 10% off anything in the store. All right, thank you guys. Have a wonderful day or night, wherever you're at right now.